I learned how to the campaign, why it didn't work. And then people were writing me, telling me, why should I back your comic? Like, I don't even know what I'm going to get. And I said, well, that's cool. I said, check out your previews. You still don't know what you're going to get half the time. I said, but I'm going to bring a certain amount of quality to it. So the first 2 or 3, I had a lot of learning. I learned a lot. And what I did is, at least what other people tell me, is I opened up the door for other people to look into it. And I went through like a hell of a lot of phone calls helping people out.
Hi, this is Adam, and you're watching Comic Industry Insiders. Why did I forget the name of the show all of a sudden? A weekly podcast where we talk to the people behind the scenes, and in this particular case, people well up in front of the scenes of the comic book industry. We get to know them as people, through their lives, their philosophies, the thing that made them who they are, and remarkable, and why we want to talk to them. Today, we're joined by Jimmy Palmiotti, a true industry trailblazer whose impact on comics goes way beyond storytelling, although we could spend the next 2 hours just talking about that. As the co-founder of Marvel Knights, he helped it revolutionize Marvel Comics at a critical time when, honestly, it really could have gone away. He helped revolutionize their entire path of storytelling and led to the modern success. He's been the driving force of independent publishing, champion creator rights, and proving that crowdfunding can be a sustainable model for comics through numerous successful Kickstarter campaigns. And Jimmy, we're going to dig into that. Don't you worry. His work has shaped not just characters, but the way comics are produced, funded, and distributed in the modern era. We're going to be diving into all of that, his views on the business of comics, and I'm sure we're probably going to delve into something that's going to irritate other people. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Palmiotti.
How you
doing, buddy?
Good, man. Doing good. Just had lunch, so I have that fuel I got to work off. I had a barbecue lunch. Yeah, man.
Yeah? Excellent.
Yeah.
Is there barbecue in Florida?
There are a lot of barbecue. There's one place that's only open during the week, and it's only open for lunch.
Uh-huh.
And we try to go once a month, and it's sort of the place that they just sell out of what they made overnight.
Yeah.
And if you go later towards the end of lunch, they'll say, "Hey, do you want to buy a rack of ribs for $10?" They have to get rid of the food by the end of the day.
Right.
So I normally because I had this interview, we went early, and then I drove all the way back here to make it on time. But normally I'm like one of the last customers, I'm waiting for the guy to go, "Hey, do you want to buy 2 racks of ribs?" Because I take them every time, I'm like, I can give them to my neighbors, I can eat them slowly or whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
But it's one of those places they literally only make what they're going to sell that day.
Yeah.
So as great as it is, you can go there on certain days where it's payday for the rest of the world, and it's packed, and then they don't have stuff, But I think the best places do that. There's nothing they ever sell from the day before. That's not how they do business. Like, everything's fresh. And
I will tell you, growing up in Texas and then now living in New York, where you're from, we have this weird problem with barbecue joints. Like, people will come back and they'll go, "Oh, I spent 20 years in the hill country and I brought back a smoker," and I'm like, they'll be fine. And then they'll do just that, right? They'll do like, I'm going to just do batches, and then once it's done, you're out. And then suddenly one of two things happens. Either A, they realize you can't do that and pay New York rent.
Right.
Or the place burns down.
Right. I was going to say, burn down their house. Well, I mean, so for a Brooklyn boy growing up, barbecue was something you got from a Chinese restaurant.
Ugh.
Right? You get like barbecue rib. And there was in Manhattan, there was a couple of Southern barbecue places. So, you can find it in Manhattan, but it wasn't a normal part of what we would eat. Once in a while, they would have a barbecue special. Diners tried to push barbecue, but that's garbage. And so really, barbecue wasn't a big thing. Obviously, Brooklyn, it was pizza, right? So pizza,
of course,
burger joints, and anything a bar serves was pretty much growing up. But definitely, when I was a kid, I mean, we're talking about I was born in 1961, so I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s. There wasn't even McDonald's in Brooklyn yet. There was a place called Wetson's, which was on Avenue U in Flatbush, and it was like before McDonald's, right? It was like the
Oh, yeah.
same. It was the same thing. And then they had like the places I've been going to since I'm a kid that is still there, like Brennan and Carr on Nostrand and
Yeah.
Avenue U. If you've never been there,
I actually have. I know
yeah.
exactly
So
the
that's
spot.
like that's been the same place since 1925,
Oh,
right?
jeez.
And
Yeah.
you remember when you go in it still looks like a log cabin in the middle of buildings, you know. And then pizza, you know, the Farah pizza was like, because we lived on Avenue J. The Farah was like the one my dad would go to, and my dad knew the old man that ran it back then. He's gone, you know. His son runs the place now.
Sure.
But you know, those were like the neighborhood places. But barbecue was not. It was not a thing, you know.
I get it.
You had to go somewhere else to get barbecue.
Now, I will say there are a couple spots, like when I first started coming to New York, the first time, actually one of my first trips here, Bob Wayne, who is, from my same hometown in Texas.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Took us to Hill Country Barbecue, which is still there. And It's good.
Sure.
Good.
I mean, you know, it's sort of like when people tell you pizza is good somewhere else. It's like,
exactly.
Well, pizza, some pizza is better than no pizza, but you know, if you're gonna tell me Domino's is pizza or Papa John's, I'm gonna just smack it out of your hands while you're trying to eat it. I'm gonna say, look, if you like cardboard with cheese and sauce on it, go crazy.
Sure.
Or if you're on a college budget where you can't afford anything and it's like 2 pies for $8,
knock yourself out.
Right.
100%.
But again, try to knock yourself out, because I think you'd be better off not eating it, or I'm going to say drink a lot and then
yes.
You know, now again, the other thing in Brooklyn, White Castle, right? Been there since I was a kid. We call them murder burgers. We call them nature's broom because you eat them and it just sweeps out.
Oh,
like literally, if you eat White Castle during the day, you'll not only be shitting your brains out later on, you'll actually things will come out of you that you ate when you were 4, like an army man or a quarter. You know, like it literally is like this. White Castle has this magic power, and it might be the working hard onions that go with it. I don't know I don't know what it is, but you will be shitting your brains out. Anybody that's constipated, eat 2 of those.
Those White Castle burgers, right up, man. That just takes care of you. Maybe that's it. That's why they cure a hangover. It just flushes all the shit out of you.
I think so. I mean, they are. One of my first dates with Amanda, we went to. She insisted we go to White Castle at like 4 a.m, and a fight broke up out in there. And you know, and this one was on Fort Hamilton, so there was like blood on the plexiglass, we call it, right? Because they had a plexiglass wall where you literally grab in and get your hamburgers. And a fight broke out. And we're just sitting there eating our hamburgers, watching it like it's everyday life. And we just look at each other. I'm going, you know, if I didn't live here, this would be like a horror show to me. This would be like the scariest place. But I was like mildly entertained, you know. As long as they don't pull out a gun, it's okay.
Exactly. It's just a fight. Right. Exactly. They just get working it out. They were going to work it out with somebody.
It kind of explains a lot of my work over the years. Definitely, somebody mentioned to me, I read a Deadpool where you had a guy that had an alligator in his basement, and I said, yeah, I know a guy in the section, like the Midwood section of Brooklyn, that had an alligator in his basement. He put like 3 or 4 inches of water in a stone, like cinder block basement, and he had a pet alligator in there. And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, you know, everybody's got different kinds of pets. I mean,
why not?
He had a full grown alligator. He would literally from the top stair, they would throw raw chicken down. They feed him with raw chicken. You know, and it had some light during the day because it had the high windows in the basement. You know, and it's so crazy, but
and yet it works. I completely see it. Right? I mean, those, especially like people that know have basements or garden apartments, those things flood all the time anyway. You might as well. You know?
Well, I'm just saying. Now I don't know. You know, I don't know everything he fed this alligator. You understand? So I just know that he liked raw chicken. That's what I remember.
Definitely liked raw chicken. What else? What other messes he had to clean up? We don't know. No.
I'm sure there's a union leader somewhere in there. But, no, I have no idea what that is. But you know, so you grow up in these places, and wild things happen, right? You know, I had a friend of mine had a tattoo parlor, and you know, and what they do is everybody sits around and tells stories. So you know, the best part about being a writer is listening. You know, because there's a lot of great stories out there that will never see print. And I think Amanda and I exhausted a lot of them doing Harley for 5 years. Harley, we literally put in references that some people are going to read and go, "Oh, I remember that,"
I
Yeah,
know that
so
guy. Yeah,
it can't help but sneak into your work at
it
some
can.
point.
I mean, that's just it. You're always a sponge, right? That's all
Right.
what we're all doing. We're all just absorbing and exporting, right?
You're
That's
trying to. I mean, the processing I feel has become a quicker thing these days than it used to be. I think people react quicker and then investigate after.
hmm.
I'm Italian, so I get mad really quick. So I understand that part. I'll get mad, and then like 2 minutes later, I'm calm and trying to figure out how to make it better. But I get pissed off for the first 2 minutes. I have all these. You can't see it because it's my wall facing me. Amanda makes me all these signs, and she puts them up on. I'll get one. How about that? I'll get
Okay,
one.
now I have to see the signs.
Because this one at least. Can we have cursing on here, or should I cover up the word?
Oh, I think we've already both cursed already.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So this is one of the many things on my wall. This one I can take off because it has a hook on it.
Uh-huh.
So it's a snail on the back of a turtle.
Uh-huh.
And she did it on her printer. And it's for me, instead of reacting, slow the fuck down.
Slow the fuck down.
These are good notes. Here's another one. Let me pull that off. This is just simple.
There you go. Right. 100%.
But I have this one makes me laugh because this one she put on when I was talking to somebody I was doing business with, and the whole business thing was falling apart, and she just taped this onto the wall in front of me.
You know what? I think you and I think are going to be all over the place here because I had so much I wanted to talk to you about, and it was all linear. But now I feel the need.
Right. We can talk comics. Sorry.
Let's go. No. Let's go. Let's talk about Amanda. Let's talk about Amanda.
I think it's good to have signs around you because it kind of.
I think so. I think so. And it's
really the snail and the turtle. I told her you can actually, if you own that photo or you could probably make money selling that on Etsy. Because I know a lot of wives out there will want to give it to their husbands.
I think that might be. I think we're gonna have to make a deal. That might be the first Comic Industry Insiders merch. Is the slow the fuck down poster?
It really works. Really, I do look at it and I go, yeah, okay. Yeah. Maybe I'm not really mad. Maybe I just feel embarrassed. You know what I mean? It's like it makes you think about stuff like that. So.
Dude, can I tell you, I was having the shittiest morning, and I ended up going out. I have a buddy who I walk Prospect Park with, and actually did an interview with him. I know nobody else watched this particular interview because I just like this guy, and we hang out a lot. Anyway, And so we were walking, and basically what we got to was, I need to slow the fuck down. I'm going in too many different directions at once. It's just time to slow down and take it
Amanda's
careful.
Amanda's over there, so she's getting ready to go to the dentist. But I was showing off your sign you made me.
We're making merch.
We're thinking of making. He's thinking of making merchandise of this, but we don't own the photo, right?
We don't.
And I got to find a snail and throw him on the back of a turtle. There you go. I'll see you in a little bit. All right.
That's perfect.
Anyway,
let's actually talk about Amanda. So obviously a big influence on your work, a big influence on your career, your life, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm sure every couple has this meet cute story and everything. The best I can figure out is that you two started working together, but I don't know how those things connected because so many freelancers work together.
Yeah, this is in 93, 92, 93, and I was working for an editor at Marvel named Hildy Mesnick, and Hildy, great editor. She lost a bet and got all the licensed Marvel books, so it's like Barbie and Gargoyles and this and that. And she hired Amanda to do Gargoyles, draw the comic, and she had Amanda doing covers, and they needed an inker. So Hildy called me and said, I'm in Brooklyn. Come into Manhattan tomorrow. I want you to meet Amanda Connors. She's a great artist. I want you to ink these covers. And she immediately said afterwards, by the way, she's married, so don't be Jimmy Palmiotti for an hour, will you? Right. So anyway, 'cause I was a single guy back then, and So when I met Amanda, you know, I met her and I liked her work and I inked all her gargoyle covers. And eventually, you know, she started hanging out with all of us. I mean, the comic artist, New York, very tight. We'd go to
Mm-hmm.
bars on the weekend. Her and her husband, Steve, would, you know, show up and they would hang out. So we became friends for years before we ever dated.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened her, you know, relationship went where it went. Mine, whatever one I had that month or whatever went that way. And eventually we, you know, we knew each other.
Yeah.
We knew each other. We were really good friends. So we knew how horrible and crazy we could be. So when we were dating, there was like a little less anxiety because we both thought it, you know, that's what I have. You know, it's not like we started dating and then we got to know each other. We actually got to know each other and then we started dating. I thought the world of her, but married woman, you know, you know, that's somebody else's life. And there's plenty of, you know, other women out there that are single.
Man, so being single in New York, man, that's a full-time job right there, baby.
Yeah. I mean, I was, you know, I was happy to have a woman that was a friend of mine, you know, and she was great, you know, and we worked together a lot. As a matter of fact, she was frustrated that she was only doing like stuff like gargoyles and she did Barbie. And she was telling me, she's like, look, you know, people look at my art, they only think I do either animation or like young readers stuff. And, you know, I said, well, you know, I know a guy that does Vampirella at Harris Comics. Would you be open for an introduction? So I brought her over to Harris and met Johnny Reingold, who was the publisher back then. And Johnny's looked at her work and said, well, you know, you're going to ink it? And I said, sure, I'll ink it, you know. And then we started doing Vampirella, and all of a sudden people started to see that Amanda could do something a little sexier, a little more risque.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think it was actually when it was this is a couple of years later. It was me and Amanda, Garth Ennis, and John McCrae went to Essen, Germany for a gaming comic festival.
Okay.
And it was raining and it was cold and everything. And we found a bar at night called we thought it was called Fitzpatrick's, and Garth was really happy to go it. Granted, we were drunk. It was actually called Fritz Patrick's. We got that off a little bit. But anyway, while we were in there, we were all talking about, you know, what if there was a superhero prostitute, and we had that, you know, drinking conversation, and Amanda's drawing on napkins. This is what it would look like. And that's when the pro came up, like the pro. And we said, Garth, you know, I told Garth, I said, you know, we can just do this and then try to find somebody to publish it. And that's exactly what we did. Garth wrote it. We got back. Garth wrote it. Amanda looked at it and said, okay, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They both work great together because they have the same sense of humor. And then I inked it, and I had the job of going out and shopping it and trying to find a publisher, which was not easy.
No, I would not imagine so.
And we offered it to DC first, and it was like, hell no. And then I think a couple of different places, and I think one company wanted us to change the name. They would take it if we didn't call it the Pro. They wanted to call it something else, and we're like, no, we actually drew, everything was drawn. I said, no, it's the Pro. She's a pro. It makes sense. Anyway, eventually I sent it to Eric Stevenson, and I said, look, I have a finished book. It's definitely gonna rustle some feathers. It's not for all ages. It's adult. But I said, but it's got a lot of heart, and give it a read and let me know what you think. And he right back called me the next day. He says, we're publishing it. He goes, it's great. And I'm like, so that's how we got the deal with Image. But it was definitely, you know,
so that was like 2002, right?
Yeah, 2001, 2002, yeah. And
so that was really early for Eric, I would say. I'm trying to remember his storyline.
Yeah, it was. And also, you know, it was right after 9/11 when it came out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this part of it, but Jim Stranko went publicly, and because I said in an interview, we terrorized the superhero, comic book, right?
Yeah.
Jim misread that as I was aligning myself with me and Amanda and Garth were aligning ourselves with the 9/11 terrorists, and wrote this whole piece about how we're like the terrorists of comics, and we don't need this in comics. He just got everything wrong, you know. And
Yeah.
and then I remember because Jim did that piece, and then I remember the Village Voice called me and asked me if I wanted to comment on Jim Stranko's diatribe, wherever he wrote this thing,
Editorial, right?
Yeah, editorial. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I want to comment. And I said, and they said, okay, on the record. I'm like, on the record. They're like, okay. And I said, Jim Stranko's a great artist. I've been a fan of his forever, and I probably always will be. I love his work. And she's like, that's it? And I'm like, yep. And she's like, what about what he said? And I said, well, he's wrong. What am I going to tell you? You know, I'm not, because the guy didn't understand what he wrote. Anyway, because of that, and because of the press it got, when the orders came in, the book went through the roof. Like, people ordered it, crazy numbers. And so knowing that, we had a little time right before it went to press. So when you see at the last page of the Pro, it says dedicated to Jim Stranko. And that's in the book. And that's why it was dedicated to Jim, because he helped our sales go up.
Thanks so much, Jim. I couldn't have got there without you, buddy.
I don't think he's crazy about signing it when people bring it to him to sign. But we both laugh about it, because he called me up and he said, hey, look, I misinterpreted. I said, dude, it's okay. Yeah, it's all right. I said, we sold another 10,000 books because of you making it seem like this was the worst thing in the world, you know. But the other piece of fallout from that, which is good information, which is a good story, is DC was not very happy with it. And
this is not shocking.
No, and at one point there was a kerfuffle up there where they wanted to make sure that Amanda, me, and Garth Ennis would never work for DC Comics ever again because of the book. And certain editors stood up and said, no, we can't do that. These are our people, and they just did a spoof. It's just a little different than what Mad Magazine would do at times, you know.
Yeah.
It's just a little filthier, but basically, at the end of the day, I had to go and meet with Paul Levitz and talk it out with him, and that was a lot of fun.
You know what's really remarkable about this? And I think the world of Paul. I think he's a spectacular human. Paul, someday I'd love to have you on the show.
He was an amazing
editor-in-chief. There's no beyond that, right? Publisher. There's no beyond the direct market. I don't think without Paul and Bob, I don't think that as leadership, I don't think we're here at all.
He was groundbreaking. That's absolutely for sure.
However, that's so that's 2002, right? And then in 2006, I think it was, Garth puts out The Boys.
Now, and if you read the Pro, you know where The Boys came from.
It's a direct line.
The Pro is Garth putting his big toe into the water to test it, right? Yeah. And The Boys is him doing maybe a swan dive into the same water, going all in, you know, a cannonball. Let's say a cannonball.
Yeah.
It's definitely the two. One could not exist without the other. He tested it out with the Pro, and then The Boys came about.
That's really interesting. It's really interesting too that The Boys seemingly for a while was in under the kind of got in under the radar at DC for a while until it came to their attention that we're publishing this. But yeah, wow, that's crazy. Okay, well, yes, that's a crazy story. Congratulations. That's good. Well, let's go backwards a little bit because we're talking. You and the folks that you work with have shaped comics, right? The way that we work inside of comics, very much so, in several different ways. And I'd love to go backwards just a little bit more. You were an inker. How do you get to a point where you're an inker? Like, is this something you just grew up thinking, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna be a tracer when I grow up? No,
I actually, as a kid, I just drew all the time. That wasn't any good, but I drew all the time.
Sure.
And then I went to Midwood High School in 9th grade in Brooklyn, and I would hand in my book reports, and I'd always draw the cover because I just like to draw.
Yeah.
And
that's so cute, by the way.
And one day, yes, I was very cute back then, and I don't know where it all left my body, but
that's crazy. Yeah.
So one day I came into school. This was probably in March, and there was a note when I get in. They said you have to go downstairs and see the principal. of the school, and I was like, how did they catch me? Like, I didn't know what I was guilty of, because I would sneak into Brooklyn College. I would do all this stuff. So I thought, oh, they got me somewhere on camera or something. I go down there and they say, listen, the teachers got together, and here's $5. Here's 2 subway tokens. Tomorrow morning, you're taking the test for the High School of Art and Design in New York. And we called your parents. Everything's clear. You're going to go tomorrow morning. So, so this kid in 9th grade, I took the train into Manhattan, went to the High School of Art and Design, took a test with like 1,000 other people. I remember it because they gave me a piece of paper and they said, in 5 minutes, draw a bus stop full of people. And I was like, what? But I just did it. And, so they accepted me into that school. So I only lasted 1 year in Midwood, but thank you, teachers, for they thought it was a waste of time, me being in Midwood. I should be in an art school. So I went to the High School of Art and Design, and there was a guy that was in my class for the next 3 years that we became buddies. His name was Mark Texera. And Mark was an artist on Punisher and all that stuff. Anyway, while I was in high school, I would pick up work. I would ghost for other artists. I don't want to name them. I'll name some of the ones that are dead. Okay. Because so like Dave Simons and that's about it. The other guys are still alive. But my first job, and this is in the 11th grade, was to do backgrounds for Chick Stone on The Invaders.
Oh, whoa.
I was in 11th grade. He gave me a panel that was a breakdown of a train station. I went that night to Coney Island and drew it from the platform, from the perspective they had.
Yeah.
I brought it back the next day. He gave me $5 and fired me. He said it looked like a photo. I'm like, well, I said I went down to Coney Island. I drew the trains in perspective.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, it looks like a photo. What am I going to do with this? And I'm just like, I thought that's what you wanted. I got fired. So Chick Stone, that lasted a day. And then I started getting some work with these guys, a couple of guys in the studio. Dave Simons was one of them. And I was ghost inking a DC comic called Time Warp, which was like a 100-page giant with science fiction stories in it. And I was inking guys like Don Newton and a couple of different guys. And then I started doing inking work on Howard the Duck magazine over Gene Colan.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, so I worked on the first couple of issues of that, ghosted on it, because I didn't get credit, and eventually I didn't get paid because these guys kind of stiffed me a little bit. But that was my taste of doing comics.
Yeah.
While I was still in school, and it wasn't a good taste. I remember sitting with my dad, because my dad had a little paint store on 81st Street in Amsterdam, and it was like we barely got by. It was 4 boys, and my dad had that talk with me. He says, do you see this as a career, comic books? And I'm like, Dad, I've been doing it. I'm working with 3 guys who live in an apartment the size of my bedroom.
Yeah.
And up until yesterday, I didn't even know where they slept. I didn't realize the walls were standing up mattresses that they would drop down. Like the bottom of their mattresses had all this reference taped to it. But I thought it was the wall, but it was all mattresses that came down at night. And that's where they slept. And my dad said, it doesn't really sound like a great life. And I'm like, no, they're doing books and they still can't afford to move out of an apartment, 3 guys in one little apartment. I said, I think I need to go into something else. So when I went to college, I went into advertising in college. I couldn't afford an art school. So I went to New York Tech, which was in downtown Brooklyn.
Uh-huh.
And that school had 3 main courses. It was art direction, advertising.
Uh-huh.
The other one was dental hygiene, and the other one was hotel management. That was their main. So I was in a school where people were always trying to offer you that they'll clean your teeth, right? Because the they needed to test on people.
To practice cleaning your teeth.
And then the other one was like, we'll feed you on Thursday, because we had hotel management was part of that, was you had to know how to cook.
Right.
So they would cook on Thursdays, and they would try to get suckers like me to come in and try their food. And then, so my college was crazy, but I took advertising there, and then I graduated there. I was on I got all these programs, TAP and BEOG, and all these programs because I had no money, right?
Right,
so,
right.
So I was government subsidized. But I had to have grades that were insanely high, and So I did really well in school, and then I went into advertising. I worked for a small ad agency. Then I worked there for many years, but I worked on cool stuff. We had some of our clients were Pepsi Cola and Maybelline, and we worked for a guy named Bill Gold, and Bill Gold's main client was Malpaso, which was Clint Eastwood's film company.
Okay.
But we designed movie posters. We worked with Bill Gold. Bill Gold passed away a couple of years ago, but he had one of the biggest agencies that only did movie posters. And he, to give you some background, his first movie poster he ever did when he was a kid was Casablanca. So that'll give you
his first.
Yeah,
wow.
his first. He died at like 94, I think, or something. He just one of those amazing career guys. But I got to work with Bill and all this stuff, and I did that. And I did that for I worked for the agency and eventually became a partner. But on my 30th birthday, I really had a like that moment where I was like, what do I really want to do now that I made some money? And my dad had passed away, and like I felt like I needed to do something else. And I said, I really want to get back into comics, And I ran into a buddy ran into my friend Mark Texera from high school.
Yeah.
And Mark was like, "Oh my God, I need your help. I'm drawing 2 books a month. I don't have time to ink them." And I told him, "I'll help you if we can work in the Marvel bullpen," because I always wanted to go up there. And I figured if I'm up there, I'm going to eventually pick up some work. And that's exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
I would help him. I would go to my regular job, 9 to 5. I'd walk 2 blocks up to Marvel. I'd go in the bullpen when everybody's still there. The first person that left, I'd sit down on their desk, and I'd start inking Ghost Rider or Punisher for Mark, and we'd work all through the night to try to get the books done.
All right. This is awesome. I don't know if I've ever actually spoken to somebody who worked in this bullpen.
Yeah,
because I've when I started in publishing, I was at Top Cow, where Mark Silvestri really wanted a bullpen, and I had a conversation on here with Philip Sablik about how I just didn't understand. Like, these guys never did anything; they just play video games, as far as I could tell. But this is obvious. So tell me about this, because it feels like everybody has been trying to get that magic ever since, right?
Yeah. So this was not a guy playing video games. If you had a video game, Virginia Romita would walk over to you and smack it out of your hands. So John Romita and Virginia were like running the studio, right? And
okay.
And John was like the sweetest, kindest, most giving guy, and Virginia was wonderful and sweet. But she was like, man, she was like, if you grab 2 pieces of like Zipatone, she'd be like, show me where you're using that second one. Like, she was the soup Nazi of the bullpen in a way,
Right.
like she made, if you grabbed 2 pieces of paper out of there, she wanted to make sure you had 2 pages that would do,
Wow.
She made sure people, so the guys in the bullpen, they were doing a whole bunch of different jobs. Now, remember, your average books was like about 50 or 60 books coming out of there a month, right?
Yeah.
So these guys were wrangling the artwork and scanning it, because remember now, all the artwork was not digital. It was sent in FedEx boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Up to Marvel. They'd open them. They'd scan the pages. They'd send it to the color. So this bullpen was a hardworking group of guys. I mean, and girls. And it was all business there. And they would work all hours. These were hardworking people getting all those books out on time, because there was...
How big is this? How many people are we talking about?
Okay, so the bullpen probably around, because they took some of the side offices, probably like 22, 24 people maybe total,
Whoa.
And
right.
and
this is
it
day
might
and
be
night.
a little lower. It depends, because some of the people had side offices,
but
I still work with some of the people and still friends with the bullpen people I met, Dave Sharp and Steve Bunch and a whole bunch of Ariana Lenshook and all these people. I still know them, and they're still friends. And
yeah.
But they were the hardest working people in the office. And then after hours, artists could go up there and, work, especially if they were behind on a deadline. The editors love that they can look out their office and see the artists working.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we actually took that on a little bit with Marvel Knights, but that's a story for later. But the bullpen was surrounded by all the editors. So all the editors' offices were all around the bullpen.
Yeah.
If you're in the bullpen, the editors would come out of their room, see what you're doing, or they'd say, hey, eventually when I was helping Mark, I would, every time I went, maybe like once a week, I would bring new samples and drop Xeroxes off. I'd use Marvel Xerox machine, and I would drop samples off in each office with my phone number, because we didn't have email back then.
Yeah.
And eventually, because I was inking a lot of stuff, they eventually I had a couple of editors go, hey, I have a book. It's due in 4 days. Can you do 20 something pages in 4 days? And I'd be like, yes, I can. Because I didn't want to turn down any work. And I literally would not go to my other job and work those 4 days to get that book done. And I became the guy in the bullpen that you can go, Jimmy will do it. Jimmy will nail it, and then I had to start slowing him down. I started to become the guy. I said, listen, I need an extra week or I need 2 weeks. But there was a time when I was doing around 3 books a month. I was inking 3 books a month up there. And the other thing that happened to me was I had artists asking me to ink their books. So they would call the editor and say, hey, can you give it to Jimmy? I want him to ink this thing. And, meanwhile, I was like visiting guys like Al Williamson and Frank Frazetta and trying to get every tip I could get.
Sure.
That's a whole nother 18 stories. But what happened was I took my deadline responsibility of my brain into the comic field, meaning when they said to me it's due Friday, I would come in Thursday with the full book. That was what I was trained to do. I eventually found out nobody does nobody does that. So if you think about the job of an editor, besides content, the job of an editor, what an editor wants is somebody they can hire that they don't have to worry about.
Exactly.
And I became the guy that nobody had to worry about. So I became very popular real quick up there. And, when I'd say no, I would make sure I said, look, I can't do it because I have this deadline, but this guy here is really good. If you want to hire him.
You always had a solution.
And if he gets stuck, I can help him do the last couple of pages, which I did. I helped some people do books. So I wanted the pencil, but I was getting so much work inking. And at the time, my mom had a lot of health issues, so I had a lot of bills to pay for her. So everything kind of worked out pretty well, right? I killed myself. But I think I've inked almost 1,000 books up at between Marvel and DC and some other publishers.
Wow.
Yeah, over the next 15, 18 years. But I still, every once in a while, I think somebody has a pinup or something they want me to ink. But I also saw the writing on the wall with the job eventually. And, but the bullpen, back to the bullpen were great because these guys would be there all night and girls. And eventually I was inking stuff where I needed background help myself. So I would hire some of the bullpen people and they loved that. They stay an extra hour. I would order a couple of pizzas up, or I'd take everybody out to the bar and we'd have a couple of drinks after we worked.
Yeah.
I made it what I wanted it to be, which was interaction with people, fun. Working with a group of people is fun. And, I became friends with the local bars in the area. There's one called Openers and another one called Rodeo Bar. And the bartenders were like buddies of mine. So I'd bring people in and we'd have meals and, again, I think I brought in my advertising sensibility, which is make sure all the clients are happy, but also my crew.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of
networking and taking care of your people, right? That's 100% it.
I would take care of my people before I would take care of myself, because that's part of what you do. That's the way my dad brought me up to. So anyway, that, all that goodwill and all that hard work, established me. And then, of course, I met Joe and all this other stuff happened afterwards. But the bullpen was my learning ground. And I will tell you, there were times when, John Romita would come over my shoulder and look at something I'm doing and make a comment, say, hey, Jimmy, you might want to get the brush and do it like that way. And I was like, that's sort of like, that's like the voice of God telling you, And so when, Johnny was so nice to me. When we did Marvel Knights later on, he did a pinup for one of our books. Yeah. And he said, now you're going to ink it, kid, and I got to ink John. And then John loved it. And then he said, and then when he got the art back, he said, hey, it's a gift for you. And he gave it to me. I have that on one of my walls too. So, yeah.
Well, all right. So let's do this. Let's jump around because I do want to go back to you and Joe starting that off, but let's jump forward then. Right. So let's skip a big jump. I'm assuming that whole bullpen section for you was like what, late 80s?
Uh, no, 90s. It was
Okay.
around 92 to Marvel Knights, because the Bullpen, we still used the Bullpen when we were doing Marvel Knights. So
So, all right. So you and Joe, you start event comics, right?
yeah, yes.
And so does this come out of that area that you meet? You know what? That's fine. Let's do the narrative.
Well,
So you and Joe meet in the Bullpen, I'm guessing.
Joe and I met in San Diego online for some food, and
Okay.
I think Rodney Ramos introduced us, and we got along right away. And he was looking for some work. He was doing stuff at DC. He was looking for some work at Marvel, and at the time, I was doing designs for Marvel covers. So it's a thing I did for a little while for Marvel, was I would do these little drawings of ideas for covers for
Okay.
all their books, and they would buy them off me at $60 a pop, right?
Okay.
And because I had experience doing movie posters, so
Right. So you knew how to lay out the image, right? Yeah.
So I would do these layouts, and different offices would buy them from me, and they would hand them to their artists. So
Amazing.
what I did is I told Joe, I said, "Listen, I can get you some covers. I'm designing some covers for the Nam and a Punisher one." And then I said, "Hey, can we use this guy Joe Casado on?" So that's Joe got some cover work there, and eventually we started working together, and I started inking them on him. But that's how we hung out, and we were working on stuff together, and he was doing work at Valiant, and he introduced me to those guys up there. And I think the first thing we did was the XO Zero for them, which was which was a book that sold over 2 million copies.
Yes.
Did we see that coming? Hell no. But we were very happy. I
It was the early 90s, man.
I got my royalty for inking it. And that was one of the few times I was thinking, God, I wish my dad could just be here so I could just show him, because he never saw me successful as a comic artist, right? He passed away early.
Yeah.
But the check was insane, and I was like, oh my God, I want to ink all the Valiant comics, But anyway, I was working for Marvel and DC and working everywhere. But Joe and I were doing stuff together, and then the Image guys, did their thing.
Yeah.
And one day Joe and I were just hanging out, and we're like, we could do that. We could come up with a superhero. How hard is that? These guys did it. And I remember the exact moment we came up with Ash, because we were at the Chicago Comic-Con, and we would share a room because we had no money, and we would share a room. And I remember I was in the shower, and I was thinking, I wonder if they ever had a fireman superhero. Like, is there a fireman superhero? And I came out of the room with a towel. I'm like, is there a fireman superhero? And I was like, I don't know. And then the next day, I think we go to the con, and we're asking some of the old timers that have boots, like, do you have like a fireman superhero book? And they're like, no, they said there was a showcase issue that had firemen in it once. And I'm like, no, fireman superhero. Anyway, we kept getting no's. And I was like, we have to do a fireman superhero. And then my younger brother, Peter, goes to me, he goes, you should just call him Ash, because it's like 3 letters and it's easy to say. And I was like, I bought him a brand new TV when he gave me that. I did. I bought him a TV. I said, here you go. That's a gift for giving me that name. So we came up with Ash, and then we came up with Painkiller Jane, and we're like, let's give this a shot. I think we put in, I think it was like 30 grand each of our own money.
Okay.
And then we went to Diamond, and oh my God, and we went to Wizard, we met with people because we didn't know what we were doing. And Wizard was very helpful because, they're not used to the creators coming up there. And we took everybody to lunch, and, we used some of the advertising because Joe had an advertising background as well. But we figured, let's do event comics. And then I remember the moment I knew we hit something, because we were watching MTV, and they said they called event comics the East Coast Image.
Oh,
and we're like,
shit.
And we're like, okay, we're on MTV. I said, I have to take a clip of this to send to that girlfriend I went out with that told me I'd never amount to anything. I have to send this to her.
This poor girl opens up a package with a videotape. What a
but anyway, like, that was like, okay, maybe we're doing something right. And then so we did event for a couple of years, and it was fun. I mean, we never did it before, so there was a lot of growing pains. And I remember Joe asked Howard Chaykin to write the intro to our collection, and he just sent back a sentence like, "The comic's not too good, but these guys have a lot of energy." And I told Joe, and I said, I'm not putting that in the book. I said, I want a little more respect than that, you know. But
Yeah.
but we did that for a couple of years until the Marvel Knights thing happened.
So that was, I mean, just watching that, I know, let's see, 90, we're talking about 92, 94, right? That
95,
area.
94,
Yeah,
95.
97. Yeah. And you guys, 98, during this whole period, I'm working in a comic shop that I eventually
Right.
buy, right? So I remember all these books coming out.
Yeah.
When do you like how does that Marvel, like I asked a few people what what questions they would ask you. And I think one of my favorites that came up was, can you just tell me about the pitch? When you and Joe go to Marvel, or maybe, I don't know if they come to you, but
Oh,
what does
okay.
that pitch look like? Like, how do you
Okay.
convince them that I get it, everything sucks, you're heading towards bankruptcy, life
Right.
sucks, but like, if you just make the characters good.
Right. So we never went up. They approached us, and how they did
Okay.
it was Gareth Shamus was talking to the owner, the publisher of Marvel, which was Joe Calamari, Joey Squid. So Joe, he was talking to Joe, and Joe was talking about they're in trouble.
Yep.
Chapter 11's coming, and they need to take some risks. They need to do something. And he said, we did this thing with Image, the Heroes Reborn thing, and it's not really what we wanted because they just took the money and ran kind of thing. And they said, is there anybody in the business that you think would be good to have up here? And he recommended us. And
this is Gemmis.
No, not Gemmis.
Oh.
Gemmis was working at some card, Fleer, I think, at the time. No, this is Gareth Shamus from Wizard.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay? Sorry.
So Gareth says, Jimmy and Joe. So we get a call, come up.
Why? Because you took his crew out to lunch at some point, right?
I think we did more than that, but we definitely. The Wizard magazine is, if you drew the cover, Gareth had to either buy it or get it as a gift. So there was a little bit of that going on. But anyway, his dad used to collect comic art like crazy. I love his dad.
Yeah.
He's no longer with us, but his dad was great. Anyway, he said, look, these two guys were doing a couple of things and getting a ton of attention. They're on TV. They're getting all this. You should think about that. So they give a call to us. We go up to Marvel, like, what is this about? And we meet with Joe and Joe Calamari, and Joe's like, look, we want to do something with you guys, and want you to think about it. We want you to maybe take over some books. And we said, what books? And it's like, well, I'll tell you what you can't have. You can't have X-Men. You can't have the top seller. You can't have Spider-Man. Can't have X-Men. Can't have X-Men. All this. You can't have all of that.
You can't break it.
So he said, come back to me with a list of the titles you want to do. And Joe and I got, Joe lived like 3 blocks from Marvel. So went back to his place, and I said, look, we both talked about who we liked. And I said, we love Daredevil. Okay. We helped Kevin Smith on a bunch of films, so kind of owes us a favor for that. And he wanted to write there. Let's get Kevin for that. Great. I said, I love the Punisher. Let's do something with the Punisher. I said, we need to mess with it because, and again, these are 2 books. Daredevil and Punisher were both getting canceled. They told us. So we're like, okay, perfect, because it's not selling, but we know these are great characters. And Joe and I both love the Fantastic Four. And I said, but we can't touch the Fantastic Four. I said, how about we go for the secondary characters? Let's get Black Panther and the Inhumans. Great, right? Mm-hmm. So we approached them with those 4 titles, and they look at us like we're crazy because they're like, 2 of them are being canceled and the other 2 never succeeded as series. And they're like, okay, but here's the contract. You guys have to hit this certain number, otherwise the deal's done. And I said, okay, but flip side is if we hit that certain number, we get on top, we get bonuses. And they're like, fair enough. Okay. So our only other demand besides a high paid, some money was, I said, look, if we're going to do this, we need to have an office at Marvel. We have to work out of Marvel. Otherwise, we can't do it. We won't want to alienate the people there. I think we're doing stuff behind their back.
Yeah.
If you could get us we get a big office so Joe and I can work in it there. We'll work up there, and then we'll interact with everybody, and it'll be easier. And we had a suggestion. We said, your 13th floor, your penthouse, is a small office. It has its own staircase and everything. Give us the penthouse. And they came back and they said, we think that's a great idea. Now, the elevator only went up to 12, and then you had to take stairs up to our office. So some people didn't like that, right?
Up to the 13th floor. Yeah.
Right. But
yeah.
here's the layout. So this whole box is the roof of Marvel Comics, right?
Yeah.
Our office is this.
Okay.
And then it's roof.
Yeah.
But I looked at it as we could put chairs and tables outside in the summer. It's, we can go right on the roof and hang out, which we did.
Of course.
So we took the penthouse, we moved in, Amanda's cousin came and repainted it like MTV. It looked like we had TVs in there, couches. And then we put some drawing boards because we wanted to make sure some of the artists can come up and work.
Yeah,
there,
that bullpen. You want to be able to see them working.
We want to see them working. We also, and when we finally moved in, we also threw a party and we invited all the floors of Marvel to come up and hang out with us, show them what we're doing, so we're not the enemy.
Yeah.
Because we were definitely looked at as the enemy because we had a little more money to play with the books. Our approach on the books were, we can make these books look better. We're also going to use digital coloring. We're going to go and make these books stand out. We came up with the Marvel Knights logo. We designed the logo, and we said we're going to, my advertising background, Joe's advertising background. I said we have to launch this in 1 month, 1 book a week, 1 month, every month. Special Marvel Knights logo, so they buy our brand. This is our brand. So if you're buying Punisher, you probably should buy Black Panther, and we put out all the number ones in the same month, 1 a week.
Oh, that's...
And the next month, number 2, 1 a week. Number 3, 1 a week.
I remember, yeah.
And we did that because we also talked to a lot of comic shops, and they said if we have continuity and the books come out on time, people will get behind it automatically.
100%.
And then it was going to get the talent, and we literally just hired everybody we were friends with. And we were not allowed to hire anybody that was working downstairs at Marvel.
Yeah.
And we can steal people at DC if we like, of course, right? But that's also why, like Garth and Ennis and Steve Dillon didn't come into the second year, because we had to wait till they were done with Preacher to get them.
Right.
So we put out the scary Punisher that dies and fights with angels, and then we put out another miniseries. We had to kind of keep them on
a simmer.
We're on a simmer till Garth and Steve were ready to come in, and then with Black Panther, what did I do? I hired my high school buddy Mark Texera, because why shouldn't I hire Mark? He's amazing,
yeah,
and he got me into this business. So I hired Mark, and Joe hires Jim Owsley, what his other names, all these other names, Priest,
Yeah.
Christopher Priest,
Yeah.
Who used to be Joe's editor when he first started at DC. So we hire our buddies. In Humans, we know Jay Lee and we know Paul, and we hire them. And then, of course, we get Kevin for Daredevil. Kevin says, okay, I'll do Daredevil. And then we said, okay, we have to make this big. So we worked with Kevin. Kevin got on some TV shows. Joe and I did some morning shows. We talked about the new wave of comics coming. It's a little more adult, streetwise characters. We pushed it like an advertising campaign and a branding campaign.
Yeah.
And we went out and branded the books. And that's what made the difference with our launch, is that there was a lot of planning beforehand. Of course, we had the cover of Wizard. We had the cover of every magazine we can get.
What was that timeline like before? When you started painting the offices to like that day?
Probably 8 months before the books launched.
All right.
Because we had to get 3 or 4 books in the drawer.
Yeah.
So if we got a book out late, we got penalized and we got less money, right? So we wanted to make sure everything came out on time. We also had to have the visuals available. And by the way, the first comic that Kevin Smith drew of Daredevil was actually, we did one of the first downloadable comics, which was literally like that. Yeah. We did a little Daredevil mini comic. Sorry, this is my phone.
That's all right.
I got to just hang on 1 second. I got to send the message. I'll call you later. There you go. So anyway, sorry about that.
That's all right. It happens.
But we did the first one of the first digital comics that was literally ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we also went downstairs when we had Marvel Knights. We went down not to the 10th floor, but the 9th floor where where the people were doing like the sales and the digital sales, and that stuff was just starting up, right? Computers
Yeah.
were just, getting there. So we tried to get in everywhere we could to promote the book outside of comics as well. And then we worked with the retailers, the posters, when this is the month the books are coming out. And I remember when they each week they came out, they were like, this is the new thing you have to buy. You have to buy this. We kind of aimed all our energy towards that because we wanted to make sure that Marvel understood that their characters can be better than they're presenting them, but it takes TLC and the right people on them. It wasn't that we did this amazing thing. It was just that we put the right people on the right characters.
Well, you almost brought like this sort of, I mean, hearing you talk about it, I realized how you got there without, I mean, I feel if Marvel Knights felt like people who came from sort of an indie background back into corporate comics, right?
Right.
But no, when thinking about it, you guys really didn't, like, you were steeped in that sort of corporate comics culture, but you had the event comics that allowed you
right. I mean, but we've been, I've been, I'm the guy that went to head shops and bought comics my whole life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understood, event comics really taught me like, okay, there's this other audience there. And we took the event comic sensibility and brought it to the Marvel Knights thing. Like these are going to be, I will say it like the word I used, I think I said, these are going to be more like boutique Marvel comics.
Yeah.
Okay.
They definitely were.
They're going to be homegrown. They're going to be a little more detailed. The coloring is going to be a little better. The paper quality is going to be a little better. They're going to be the same price, but we're going to give you something where you're not going to throw it away so quick. That was our goal.
The other thing too is I think it's just because last night also we were watching that first episode of the new Daredevil, right? And saw John Romita's son. That was nice little cameo there. But we just thinking back on the history of that character, how many times does that character have to like, oh, nobody wants it, and then somebody comes in and like completely, oh my God, Daredevil's the most amazing thing. How many times does it have to happen? It's incredible.
I think it's it's a funny thing for a writer when they give you a character that nobody cares about. I will say I had 3 circumstances where outside of Marvel Knights where that's happened to me, where it worked out pretty good. And that's Power Girl, Harley Quinn, and Jonah Hex. Mm-hmm. Where, honestly, the companies... Harley Quinn, they thought it was only going to last till issue 8 and then get canned. Jonah Hex, they never imagined it would be 115 or 20 books. And Power Girl, they gave me and Amanda Power Girl and Justin, and we're like, in 12 issues, we kind of like grounded the character. Where people, I think ever since they've been trying to do a version of that. Yeah. They still know my phone number this issue. Just give us a call. But when you get those underdog characters, you focus on why do people love these? Why is this a good character? What makes people stay a fan of this character? For Harley Quinn was a tough one for us because, like I said, Amanda and I looked at Harley and we both started laughing. And I said, I don't want to write characters in an abusive relationship. And she's like, yeah, let's just get her out of relationship. And then Amanda's drawing a comic. Like, oh, look, she looks like a roller derby girl. Let's make her in a roller. Like, it was one of those things. It was just the right creators. Power Girl, Justin and I sat there and said, all right, we know why people visually like Power Girl. But we asked DC, I'm like, can you tell us where does she live? And like, what does she do for work? And they're like, well, she's Star Labs, but where she lives, we never really did that part of her story, and I said, well, let's Peter Parker her up a little bit, man. We need to give her.
How superficial are you that the character with just the boob window, they don't know anything about her background? I mean,
there was so there's hints of it in certain books, but they didn't spend time of it. She was a character that would just appear and she'd be Power Girl, right?
Yeah.
Jeff Johns did a little bit of world building there that helped us when we did our book. But for me, it's like I can't care about a character if I don't see them in their regular life. Like I have to see them. I have to see them go through stuff. It can't just be hero versus villain because that wears down really quick. Batman
Yeah.
works because it's Bruce Wayne, it's Alfred, it's a whole world of stuff. But if it was Joker and Batman all the time, which I feel it is a lot of times, I
Yeah.
have no interest in that anymore. Like, I don't even care. Somebody's like, oh, Joker's in a new one. I'm like, ugh.
We've heard that
I know
story.
how it ends. He doesn't kill him, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, so with
I
the
recently had that with Nosferatu. Everybody wants to go see this film, and I'm watching it. It's beautiful, but I know every moment of this narrative. Like, you have not changed the story structure at all.
no,
How-
it was
yeah,
it was
anyway.
Coppola's. It was Coppola's Dracula.
Exactly.
I mean, I will give it credit. It was beautiful.
Oh,
And
gorgeous.
if I had a nightclub, I would project it on the whole back wall
Yes.
all night.
100%.
And I'd have Depeche Mode playing, and I'd have that on the screen. That would be an all-night thing.
I'm there. Yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah, I mean, because I liked Coppola's one too. I really enjoyed that one. It was
sure.
It was so crazy. It was batshit crazy. But I agree with you. It's kind of like you wanted him to kind of bring his artistic vision
Yeah.
a little more to the story and less.
Yeah.
I mean, there are visual moments in that film when they're looking down that long road with the snow, and I was just like, it's so beautiful. But I know where this is going.
Yeah. If you just spent that much energy on the script, maybe just something. Yeah.
Whatever.
All right. So
Anyway.
I'm going to get a little to, 10,000 square feet or 10,000 feet because I do want to dig deep into some of like paper film specifically.
Okay.
But before we get there, you start off as an inker, you go into advertising, you go back to inking. And since then, like, you've been in comics and you've hit seemingly every step along the way. Right, you've done a ton of writing.
Lettering is the only thing I haven't done. Lettering,
right? Exactly. You've done a ton of writing, drawing. You've done the covers. You've been essentially acted as a publisher, promoter, marketer. Which of those felt the least right for Jimmy? Is there something that you put that on and you're like, ah?
So the one I stress over the most is. Drawing, because
oh really?
Yeah, because I have a person in the house that could draw anything. I'm friends with Joe and Dave Johnson and Dan Panosian and Kevin Nolan, and Darwin Cook was over my house every other day for years. So anytime I took a pencil to paper, I felt like, oh my God, it's like this. I felt like a 6-year-old drawing, doing refrigerator drawings, for his friend.
Yeah.
So that's probably don't get me wrong. Everyone is encouraged. You got to draw more. Always, all the time. And I was like, you don't understand. It's like watching like a soldiers. I'm a kid with a stick watching guys with guns fighting. I'm like So that one causes me the most stress because I stress out about the drawing. I doodle all the time. I constantly draw. And my wife takes my drawings out of the garbage and saves them. I know she does that. But I throw them out because I'm like, I'm just sketching while I'm working, because when I'm trying to come up with stuff, it's like a
visualize. Yeah.
I got offered publishing jobs, right? To do be the publisher, be the editor in chief. Marvel Knights taught me that this is years of my life where if I'm not creating something, it doesn't count for me, right? So Marvel Knights, I remember I inked Daredevil, I inked Punisher, I inked Doctor Strange at one point. I inked a lot of the books because I felt like I needed to touch the books all the time. I had to have my art in there. But being the boss of other people, I don't get me wrong, I think I'm a very good boss, but and probably, my dad was a sergeant in World War II, and he had a ton of very loyal men because I met them all my life afterwards, and they would talk about my dad as a great leader. He helped everybody. I realize that, but if I'm doing that, I'm not creating, and I feel like I only have a certain amount of time. I should be writing my own books. I should be doing some art. I should be creating stuff. And I got offered crazy jobs, with tons of money. The problem with them, and the problem with most people, is when they don't understand that it's not that I don't need the money. It's that it's not that important to me. Okay. Right. I have a car that works. Okay. I own my house. My parents are gone. I don't have a lot of expenses. You know, I have a habit. I like to buy artwork, but
Yeah.
I limit that. And I still think I have the same brain as I was a kid, where I grew up with no money, so I'm careful about money. So when they offered me
$10 rib racks, so it's
yeah,
it's a thing.
$10. Yeah, I still have the kid from Flappers trying to bargain his way out of something.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, I don't want to babysit other adults, and that's the bottom line. I really, you know, I want my name as the creator of the title, not the guy that babysat the creators. And I feel that way about everything I do. I don't want to be the caretaker. I want to be the guy actually doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to direct porno. No, anyway, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, I want to be involved, and
Sure.
I want to be able to create. I feel like my brain is a giant parking lot, and each car is an idea, and I can't bring any new cars into the lots until I get some of the old ones out, and I feel like I need to get. I have all these ideas. I need to make these books, whether they sell or not. I figured out a way I can put them out where it's, there's an audience there. It's not a great one, but it's one that pays the bills. I just feel like I only have enough time on the planet to do what I do. And I have to tell you, like, a personal story.
Please.
So my buddy Darwin Cook used to come here. He, like, 6 months a year, he'd live right near me in Florida. He used to stay in my guest room until he finally bought a little place for himself right down the street. So I would see him every day, almost every day.
Where are you in Florida, by the way?
I'm in the Clearwater area, right?
Okay, gotcha.
So, like the Tampa area.
Yeah.
So Darwin used to come down, and he used to bring coffee for Amanda in the morning. We'd sit in the living room. He'd tell me about, when I'm done with this, I'm going to do that. I have this great idea. He had 1,000 great ideas. I mean, I remember them, and then he died. And none of these ideas, and I used to yell at him. I'm like, can you finish that damn Parker book already and do your own stuff? Because you've done, like, how many of these Parker books? But you got all these great stuff with these characters. I want to see you on the page, not somebody else's writing.
Yeah.
And then he gets lung cancer and he's gone real quick. And, he's just a funny note. Every room in my house has something Darwin Cook brought to my house. He made sure in every room there's an item, whether it's an ashtray or it's a piece of art or it's a chair or a light. He made sure every room in my house has something that he brought in. It's very, I commend him on that.
That's really, I love that.
Make sure I wouldn't forget him. I even have a mug.
Incepted your house. Yeah.
I even have a mug that I'm going to show you this mug. You got 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, let's take time.
This is a Darwin Cook mug. Now, nobody made this. This was made in the 50s. But it looks exactly like Darwin, if anybody knows him. So anyway, back to Darwin. So my thing is, all these stories never going to see the light of day, sadly. I would love to do some, but his wife, that's her property and whatever. That, and that was like a real slap in the face. How cool would it be to have like 10 more Darwin creator-owned series instead of Parker novels, which have been adapted 800 times.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so things like that really taught me, like, okay, you know what? I need to do my own stuff. And I still do, commercial stuff. I still do stuff for other people.
Right.
But I'm always working on my own thing. And I think that's part of growing up, figuring out what you want. If I was money oriented, if everything was about money for me, I would do different things. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't really, honestly, what is more money going to get me besides more stuff?
Right.
What and security is overrated. I mean, you do crazy things when you don't have security. You take risks. And I think risk taking is part of the job of an artist, is to take a risk. It's not to find a blue dog you can paint over and over. Like, that's not the life of a creator. The thing is to experiment and fail upwards. I always call it failing upwards. I fail upwards all the time. Things don't sell. I think I remember Mark Waid said to me, it's, you have it easier than me to come up with creator own, because he says, when I do it, it's look at it has to be successful because I'm Mark Waid. And he goes, you do it, it's just like you're on to the next thing. And I said, you know what? That's the inception in your head right now. and that's what's keeping you
Mm-hmm.
from doing more stuff. And I said, but that's the message you're telling yourself all the time. So you feel, when we tell ourselves things, when people say, yeah, I'm not that smart, that is you telling yourself
Yeah.
something you believe on some level, but you start to believe it even if it's not true. So I'm very careful about what I tell myself. But I learned a lot from Darwin, to do your own thing, get out there, make noise when you have to. I definitely have a different finesse than Darwin. Darwin was more of a fighter, hands-on fighter. I was definitely more of like, let's talk it out.
Yeah.
I mean, my social media is about let's talk it out. But I do have people that want to fight, and I recognize them right away, and I block them and move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm having a weird thing right now with somebody in social media who seems to be trying to pick a fight with me without naming me.
Right.
He like keeps following what I'm doing and doing the counter.
Yeah.
And because he gets a better audience than me, it feels weird. Like he's trying to bait me into. I don't know. It's very strange.
Well, I have people that do that all the time. I have a guy that has completely whatever my opinion is the opposite.
Yeah.
And then he'll go on and tell me, I love your work. I buy all your work. And I say, well, so what is he getting out of this interaction?
Yeah.
And I realize, so there's a thing, there's an expression, about reacting. Basically it's about empowering people. So when you react to something, you empower them, right? Because you're recognizing them, and you're giving them. The only power people have over me is my reaction to them, right? So
100%.
So I don't react sometimes.
Yeah,
and it just pulls the rug out from under them, and then they'll come back and do it 3 or 4 times, and I'm just like, nah, I'm not going to react.
In an attention-based economy,
yes,
the asset, the currency is reaction. It is engagement.
Right. And I don't mind engaging if people are polite. But like one guy today, because I was commenting about veterans, like, we have to, don't fire all the veterans working in a thing. Let's just figure out how to be more efficient with the company. Let's get new people in. Don't fire everybody and figure it out later. And I said, my dad was a veteran, and, and the person said, oh, well, you blocked people that don't follow you from reacting to this. And he called me a couple of names, and I said, look, buddy, I said, it's my page. Yeah. When I follow somebody, it's because I trust their opinion, or I trust that they're not going to use names like you just did. And therefore you don't get to comment on my things, but enjoy watching me talk about you, because what are you going to do? Right. And again, the art of conversation, I love conversation. I mean, if you want to say anything about my comics, they're wordy. I love that characters talk, and they, I grew up listening, because of 4 boys in the house. I grew up listening to a lot of people. So anyway, I don't know where the question went.
I don't know where I've lost the question. So 2001, your first Kickstarter comes out in 2011, right?
11, yeah.
So in 2011, you hit the first Kickstarter. I would love to go back and see who else was doing it at this point, but like, we're talking 14 years ago.
Nobody I know was doing Kickstarters. I read about them in the New York Times, the company.
Yeah.
And I looked at that article, and then I went online and I read like what they do. And I'm like, and there wasn't any mainstream people using it or anything. There was like some random comic things and everything, but there wasn't much. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, so how would I do this? And how would I do this where it wouldn't be about me, where it wouldn't be about me taking the money and making the book, because I'm going to leave people waiting for a long time. Yeah. So I invested my own money, and I did this thing, Queen Crab, with an artist I met, and it's the only comic he ever drew. I destroyed him. But and I did the book, and I said, okay, now let me see if I can make this work like as a Kickstarter. And the subject matter, I got a nice cover by Sass Christian, who was a pretty popular artist at the time. And I put it out, and it did pretty well. We made all the money back, and I got everybody their books. Of course, I got a printed, beautiful hardcover. And then I did a deal with Image right away. I said, look, can you sell, do you want to sell this? And they solicited, and I sold it. So it succeeded, but I learned 100 different things on it. I learned about the shipping, the weights, the paper stock, the size. I learned how to the campaign, why it didn't work. And then people were writing me, telling me, why should I back your comic, like, I don't even know what I'm going to get. And I said, well, that's cool. I said, check out your previews. You still don't know what you're going to get half the time. I said,
True.
but I'm going to bring a certain amount of quality to it. So the first 2 or 3, I had a lot of learning. I learned a lot. And what I did is, at least what other people tell me, is I opened up the door for other people to look into it.
Sure.
And I went through like a hell of a lot of phone calls helping people out. Like Brian Polito and Billy Tucci, all these, anybody who called me and asked me about it, I would go through it. I said, look, here's what I learned. Here's how I would ship it. I buy one of these printing things, do the labels through the post office. And
so you were doing all the fulfillment and everything yourself, like you were packing boxes?
It was me. At first it was me. And then my buddy Patrick eventually started helping me out because, again, one time I had like 1,000 something packages, and I was like, okay,
yeah,
I got the kids in the comic shop to help me pack some stuff, and I just paid them, bought them food and beer and paid them. But I started to see like, okay, now this is how to do this. And I made this much money on this campaign. Now, if I solicited this through Image, it might have only made me like maybe $3,000 or $6,000. But I do it through here, I actually made $18,000. And then now 2 years later, I could sell it to Image to reprint a different way. Sort of like we did with Pop Kill just recently.
Right.
So I said, all right, let me figure this out. And as I was figuring it out, I was doing them twice a year. I've done 25 or 26 of them because I have them. They're on the Paper Films and Jimmy Palmiotti. So there's actually 2.
Yeah.
There's 2 of them. If I feel like it's a Jimmy Palmiotti jam, great. But if something feels a little outside of me, I make it Paper Films, which is kind of a funny, weird thing. But that's my brain working. But anyway, I started figuring it out, and then I helped a ton of people. And then I would do Kickstarter, would ask me to do panels, and I would go through everything I did with people, how to do it. I would tell people, copy my campaign, look at how I wrote it, just write those like that. This is well tested. And then many years later, I start seeing companies using it, and I'm like, not crazy about that because I was trying to not take their money, from their audience.
Right.
That's why right. The Kickstarters were about me doing grassroots stuff and getting people that really like my work. I'm still experimenting. I still use Kickstarter. I have one coming in 2 weeks for Painkiller Jane. But it's great to do. I don't have a schedule, right? I just do it when I can.
Yeah.
And then
it looked like 2 or 3 a year. I did a little research. You know what? I'm realizing I didn't pull in the Paper Films, and I need to go back and look at that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I found 21 campaigns.
Okay.
Just over 800,000 that you've raised over the years.
Yeah.
And an average of 958 backers.
Yeah.
That's
legit. All I need is 1,000 people to pay my bills. No, I mean, look, and let me tell you something. I did these the books I do. They're top of the line printing. They're printed right here near my house, so I get to drive down and look at the press if I want to see it.
Right on, really?
Yeah. We spot varnish. I pick out the paper stocks. Everything on it.
At the printer, you go to the printer down the road.
The printer's a couple hours south. Yeah,
that is awesome.
I mean, I don't have to go all the time because we've been working together.
Yeah,
so,
no, but still, that you can.
They know what I want. When I ask for spot varnish, yes, one I have here.
Yeah.
These are like I asked for a velvet finish, and then I do spot varnish they carry. Then they do raised printing, and the inside paper is like this is like, this is thick, and the paper is something like Fantasima. It's kind of a stretch, you know what I mean? And I know it's a little. Look, Pop Kill, we never thought that would sell, right? Because we're it's a comic book about competing soda companies, but it also gives me the freedom to kind of experiment a little bit and do crazy stuff because I'm like, I did a book called Sex and Violence that does very well, and it's all short stories around the same theme. I don't know if that would have done well somewhere else, but I know for Kickstarter, as soon as I do them, I have 3 chapters, 4 of them, 4 books. They always do pretty well. So I just figured out this stuff. And
well, tell me some of the stuff that they figured out. So, for instance, I'm looking at books like Denver, right? You're setting a certain pattern of how much you're going to raise, and then Denver comes in and almost doubles that. What's the distinction there?
Denver, I had a PR person work with me, and we sold it to like audiences outside. So I had it with that Kickstarter came a soundtrack, right?
Okay.
So you got to download to a soundtrack. So when you read the comic, you can listen to the music, background music.
Right.
You know, look, frustrated filmmaker, right? So I want to give you a full experience. But it's just something caught on with them. I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you do a book and people look at the cover and go, "Oh yeah, I want that." Like,
Yeah.
look, we deal with it every week on Wednesday. We go to the comic shop and we go,
Sure.
"Oh, I want that. That looks good," or
Yeah.
"That don't look so good. I don't want that. That looks cheap," or I don't like that cover," or "I don't want another cover where somebody's just standing there." You know, I want something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, record stores. I used to buy records based on the covers because I couldn't open them in the store, and then I
100%.
go home and try it. So,
What do you think? Take a Palmiotti or Paper Films campaign. What makes it unique? Like, what are the things that you're teaching people now?
they're going to get a quality book. They will get the book delivered before the time we say it's due. Meaning, we'll say if it's going to come out in April, it comes out before the end of April, right? It comes out in April. I've never had a late shipping on my book. No.
Are you getting the books done before the campaign?
No, at the minute the actual comic is done, but I don't put the order into the print until I get my numbers from the Kickstarter.
Gotcha. So you get all the A&E, all the pages in, everything ready to go. Then you run the campaign. And as soon that goes to the printer.
As soon as the print is done, it comes to our office. We pack it up and we send it. And me and Patrick pack every package. Still, yeah. No, people will laugh because they'll know when I packed it because I always put my initials on it. So. And if I recognize the name, I always write a little note on the package, like, "Hey man, what's up?" So they're gonna know they're gonna get it on time. They're gonna know if they have a question, it'll be answered within a day.
Yeah.
As they answer every question. If they have a problem with the shipping, they know they're gonna get it from us. We're gonna follow through. We're gonna make sure it gets to you, even if we have to send it special delivery or hand delivery or whatever we have to do.
Yeah.
I've never had somebody not get their stuff. Meaning I've made sure every person always gets their books. If you miss your campaign 2 years ago, I'll make sure you get your book. I hate doing it, but I want you to send. But no, I think I've asked Kickstarter if they can do a rating where people rate the campaigns.
That would be smart.
And they always tell me the same thing. Oh, that's a great idea. I want it because I want
you'll ace it. Right, you'll be 5 stars.
I want that 100%, because I feel like I earned it. So besides that, they'll know the production is great. They'll know the artwork is top notch. They'll know it's written by a madman, and then they'll understand that when I resell the Kickstarter to another publisher, they understand, like I did with Mad Cave. Mad Cave couldn't have any of the covers from the Kickstarter.
They had to get other covers done.
They had to get new covers done. So my Kickstarter people now have the exclusive only 100 or only 200 of those.
Yeah.
So they have something that's worth a little more money. I let them know, and I don't do it. I didn't do Pop Kill for years afterwards, right? But I let them know that I'm keeping. They have that first record that was sent out. They don't have a re. Because there's a couple of things I'm very savvy with. I understand. Because I'm a comic book collector, I understand the collector mentality.
Yeah.
I understand wanting to grade your comics. I understand you want it in perfect condition, which is why we make sure everything's packed like insanely. I also understand you want it on time because we're a quick society. We want everything quick.
Yeah.
I also understand how much I appreciate everybody that backs it. And I make sure I'm very clear about that in every book, how much I appreciate it. And I also understand the idea of feeling like there's somebody behind the thing I'm buying. It's not a corporation. It's not a group of people. There's somebody that's sitting there and selling it, and he's packing it, and he's sending it to you. You're getting this special thing from somebody. Again, I put myself in their shoes. And I think if I was a kid, if John Buscema, Mike Kaluta, Barry Smith, Bernie Wright, if they were doing Kickstarters, man, I would be backing every single one of them, right?
Yeah.
I'd be like, that to me was the ultimate thing as a kid. I was a fan of these guys. So I kind of look at it that way. I approach it like that. And I don't do anything halfway. If the printing's not right, I send it back. I don't send it to people. If it's damaged, I don't put it in a box. I don't put damage in it. My printer, God bless him, sometimes he delivers a book and I go, there's a spot here, and he goes, we'll redo it. I'm like, thank you. He gets it. He gets it. Because I said, look, if I'm charging $20-$30 for this, it's got to come out of the bag looking like gold.
Yeah.
I said, it can't be crappy paper. It can't be a Kickstarter that's like, here, look, here's a crappy book. Here's a sticker. I'm like, I get it, but I feel like there's a personal, I'm having an interaction with a customer. I'm a guy that paints your house. I want the house to look amazing.
Yeah.
And I want you to recommend me to all your friends that need their houses painted. Right? So that's my bottom line with everything, is that I want to make sure that the next time I do a Kickstarter, people don't say, oh, don't do his Kickstarter. He never delivers the books. That never happens with me. Happens with a lot of people.
Oh,
I never say the quality's crap. Oh, you're not going to get your book on time. That's not a conversation people have when they back my stuff. And so I live and die by my reputation on that end of the business. And that's the way I do my Kickstarters.
It also, something as you're talking, you talked about you just need 1,000 to live. Like Ken Kelly famously said, you only really need 1,000 true fans, right? If you want to have a creative life, if you want to be someone who creates something to put out into the world, all you need is 1,000 people who will follow what you do and give you $100 a year.
Yeah, I backed Eduardo Risso's Kickstarter today.
Yeah.
Because I love his work. Like, why wouldn't I want to give him, if he was in front of me, take my money, man. I'm like, but now I'm going to get this great book by Eduardo. And, I think I got to sign one. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy about that.
Even better.
Sometimes I get drawings in them, sometimes they do drawings and I get those.
Yeah.
But, compared to what? I had dinner last night. It was $120.
Yeah.
And guess what? I just pooped that an hour ago. You know what I mean? It's like I spend crazy amount of money on things that
don't last. Right.
No, they don't last. But the books I can kind of go back and, I don't know, man. These are things, they've been important in my life. So I kind of treat them that way.
Is there another platform that you're looking at now? I mean, you seem to, since you were so far ahead, now you got me wondering if there's something I'm not seeing that we should be heading to. Yeah.
So the only one, I'm waiting for the right person to make a program so I can just do it myself.
Yeah.
I could just do. And so here's the two things that happen with crowdfunding. One is like, people feel like it's like a contest, like how much you're going to make and what are the stretch goals. There's like a horse race about it for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So when you sell things on your website, there's no horse race. It's just like, there it is, buy it,
Yeah.
So you have to create that kind of thing. It has to be there. And then, the collectability part, is very important to people. They want to know, when I say this a limited Amanda comic cover to 200 issues, they want to know I'm telling the truth and I'm not printing 350 to sell at cons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have to be I'm very careful about what I order. I do the 10% over. Our 10% over is always about damages.
Of course. Yeah.
And people losing things. But I don't have a ton. People say, do you have any more of those Adam Hughes covers? And I'm like, I wish I had more. I said, I printed what I printed and they're gone. But, there's a secondary market. Good luck.
So you would, I guess in envisioning this, ideally, if you could create that horse race, that sort of like the activity that comes with, oh my God, look at this thing, this energy.
Right.
And you could make it, be promoting it as collectible. I mean, we had, Sean Hadushko on here from Elite Comics, and he's talking about how he's doing his own sort of crowdfunding on his own website. But that's tough, right? That's tough to still create that energy.
It's tough because, remember, with Kickstarter, I can literally email everyone that's ever backed any of my Kickstarters.
Yeah.
In one shot, right? So, like that's hard to lose. And
sure.
They have confidence with the platform. That's another thing that it's hard to have because they don't,
Yeah.
I'm also old. So, I'm young at heart up here, right? But, I look at every new technology and I'm like, oh God, that's going to be a tough one to figure out. I don't have that young guy with glasses that's ready to go and do everything for me. Like, so I look at everything and I'm like, okay, this is a lot more work, and it's going to take away from me doing the book. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I might stick with this for a while. You know, I did a Kickstarter that was only digital. It was the Creator and Heroes collection, only digital. And that was kind of fun to do because to print the book, I got prices and I'm like, I can't charge people what they're quoting me. It's too much money. I can't, because you want to double it at least,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if it costs you $10, you want to sell it for 20. But
Yeah.
the prices were coming in so high, I'm like, I can't ask people for that. And I told Patrick, I'm like, let's just do it as a digital campaign. Like, let's just
see what happens.
Do a 780-page book, and people can read it, and it's only $10, you know?
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well. Like, I was happy with the way that went. So I'm experimenting all the time. I love writing Painkiller Jane. So every year I make sure I do one Painkiller Jane book. The next one I'm doing is Painkiller Jane GI Zombie, which was a book I did at DC, but I got all the rights back. So
right on.
Yeah, so it's a GI Zombie Painkiller Jane book, which is, you know, for me that's just pure fun. And again, it's nudity, it's violence, it's crazy shit. I mean, it's basically the two characters going to Epstein Island. You know, so it's kind of crazy.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see y'all doing well with that. Yeah.
We'll
100%.
see.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, this has been way too much fun. And I feel like you and I probably could go another couple hours just on the stories alone. Is there anything particular we haven't talked about today that you wanted to make sure that our audience heard about? Because there's literally dozens of people who watch this. Literal dozens.
All right, you 24 people or 32 people. How are we doing? 48?
On a good day.
No, so I got a Kickstarter couple of weeks. If you just follow me on any social media, you'll see it. I'll make sure you hear about it. If you go to paperfilms.com, there's a pop-up that happens and you can subscribe to our newsletter.
Awesome.
I don't bombard you. You get like one or two a month, maybe.
Okay.
But I always make sure they're fun. There's always artwork and weird photos on it and stuff like that. So I make it fun.
I will say, I remember back in, I want to say in the aughts, you had a newsletter. I want to say it was like Trust Jimmy or something like that.
It was, Listen to Jimmy.
Listen to Jimmy, that's right. And I remember my wife at the time was not crazy about some of the stuff that was on there. I loved it.
Well, it was you know what it was? It was, I had a thing on it called Sexy Monday.
Yeah, I remember Sexy Monday. Yeah.
And I would try to find tasteful
beautiful
nudes or sexy things. But I got to tell you, like, I can't tell you how many people come up to me, oh, I miss Sexy Mondays. And, you know, I used that for this cover. I used that photo I had from that cover. And I used to laugh because I said a lot of those photos I took, nobody knew I took them. But a lot of those. Yeah, I used to do photography all the time. But I never took credit for them. I just put them up with the rest of them, you know. But I used to do that. And then I realized that although that's fun and like somebody like your wife maybe doesn't appreciate that, you know, that's personal taste though, you know. I'm sure
she's the ex-wife now, so I'm not worried
there you go. Help with her. No, but you know, so growing up in New York and in Brooklyn and being a high school student in New York, Manhattan, and all that shit, growing up in the 70s and 80s, like nudity, all that stuff is nothing to me. Like it doesn't, it's meaningless. It's just, it's beautiful. It's women are beautiful, men are beautiful, whatever. It doesn't. So, but I get when some people get upset about some stuff. I get it. But at the same time, I stay loyal to what I like. So when you read my books, it's pretty much what I like. If I write a comic where I don't like it, I shouldn't be writing it. And recently I got offered a series by one of the big two, and I pitched something in the series, and they were like, well, can you change it to this? Can you change it to that? And I said, you know what? I'm going to save everyone a lot of time. I'm like, I'm not the guy for this series. I said, if you want me to write it your way, you probably should write it yourself. I said, but when you hire me, you have to understand I have a way of telling a story, and it's usually fun and silly, a little sexy, a little over the top. Humor is very important to me in comics. I like a good giggle, even to break up the tension. You know, look, I'm a guy that finds Yellowstone funny at times because there's parts of it that I'm sitting there giggling because I'm like, that's ridiculous. But I'm glad they added that in there. It kind of relieves the tension I just had for the past 20 minutes. So anyway, I wasn't the right. I just said I love the character, but you don't want me to do me.
Yeah.
So I'm okay passing on it. Just don't hold it against me, and please don't not offer me anything.
Right. Next time when you need Jimmy, I'll come as Jimmy. That's great.
Right. And I think it's the superpower we all gain is learning to say no sometimes to things that don't fit right.
Yeah.
I take on things that I know are not going to sell, but I kind of I have an angle that I want to tell, and I'm like, so I just say, well, it's not going to sell, but I'm going to have fun writing this one. And
all right, so that's the newsletter. Anything else?
Gunslinger comes out monthly. Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger from Tom McFarlane.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Painkiller Jane Jazz Zombie Kickstarter in 2 weeks, and also I have a Pop Kill comes out from Mad Cave, and I have coming up a Harley Quinn Elvira crossover that's hysterical. It's fun. That is a fun comic.
I can't wait
that's
to read
all there
it.
is to it. Yeah, that's
Jimmy. Been looking forward to this one for a while. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, buddy. This is great.
Hi again. Thanks so much for watching Comic Industry Insiders. It, as always, is our pleasure to talk to the movers and shakers of comics and to bring you those conversations. We'd love it if you'd support us with a like and subscribe, and telling your friends is always good, but really what we want to do is hear from you. Any questions, any suggestions you have about our show, any suggested guests, frankly, anything at all, we'd love to hear from you. Our producer is nearly always Stephanie Girk, and our researcher is Anthony Militano, who makes me look much smarter than I am. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Namaste, y'all.